GDG Cloud Boston and co-hosting chapters are proud to present a session on Become a Generative AI Leader. I'll explain to you why this is the best Google Cloud certification to get, unless you're already familiar with this area. It is the most value for the least effort in terms of understanding generative AI. I will explain the importance of that as we go through, but that is the theme of the evening. Could I just get an indication everyone is hearing me okay? Marianne, give me a thumbs up if you would.
Yep, we are.
Okay, awesome, great. We'll keep going. We are recording this, by the way, so anybody that's not able to join will be able to follow us later. I'm Norbert Kremer. I'm your host this evening. I'm an AI engineer by trade, data engineer. I'm a Google developer expert in Data Cloud, and I'm an organizer at GDG Cloud Boston. And that's the chapter that's bringing you this event this evening. Marianne Ray is my co-pilot this evening. She's a staff software engineer at Ginkgo Bioworks, also Women Tech Makers Ambassador, and a co-organizer at GDG Cloud Boston. So we are, as I mentioned, using Slack this evening. We don't have the, I've disabled the chat in Bevy here because the audience is so large. I didn't want to have that, and that whatever is in Bevy would not be persistent. So we're trying to use Slack. I will put up the Slack joining URL periodically throughout the talk in case people join late. I want to get as many people onto Slack as possible. But anyway, I want to recognize our co-hosting chapters here. We have a very large group of collaborators this evening, including some local, our regular collaborators locally, and then we have some as far away as California, and even I saw one chapter in Nigeria is joining us, and that's a very inconvenient time zone for them. So welcome to everyone from those chapters. And I want to give a special recognition to one of the newest chapters in the state of Connecticut, and that's GDG on campus at Wesleyan University. I've been mentoring the organizers over there and coaching them in terms of getting the chapter started, and it just formed about a month ago, and they'll be having some events this fall, obviously, and I think they'll be co-hosting some of our events here at GDG Cloud Boston. The other special recognition I want to give is to our long-standing partners at GDG on campus at HALT International Business School in Cambridge. We're actually hosting our DevFest at the HALT campus, and we're very excited to be using their fantastic facility. So on the left, you have an overview of the couple of the buildings there that form the business school. And then on the right, if you are able to come to our DevFest, you definitely should check out the little piece of the Berlin Wall there on the right side, which is was specially imported, and it's part of the decorations there at the HALT School. So thank you all for joining and participating this evening. All of our GDG meetings are conducted with a code of conduct, and there is a link there to this code of conduct, and it's a very long legal type document, so I won't read it. The summary of it is, at least our interpretation is, be kind, encourage participation, ask questions, and recognize that we're all here to learn from each other. It's pretty simple and sensible, I think. So we normally don't have any problems with any of that. This is me, a little bit about me. I call this my brag slide. I have put up a lot of my certifications that I've achieved over the last few years. On the bottom left are the Google Cloud certifications that I have, including the Google Developer Expert at GDE badge. And I put these here to indicate that I have built this strategically in terms of, so I'm a cloud trainer as well. So the Google certifications help me with training. In other words, the more certification, more areas I'm certified in, the more I can teach, and that so that I have kind of incentive to get them for that reason. The ones on the upper right here are from another organization where I teach also. It's called TDWI, or Transforming Data with Intelligence. They have 3 certifications, and because I'm on faculty there, I got those. And the point of these of getting any certification is to make you a better collaborator. This is my opinion. I've seen a lot of cloud providers and software vendors that have certifications say that, you know, they kind of try to draw a straight line between, oh, if you get this certification, you'll increase your salary or you get a better job. I don't really believe that's quite so simple. I think it makes you a better collaborator, and I talk about T-shaped skill sets where you have a very strong expertise in your own vertical that you are an expert in, and then you also have on the top of the T, the crossbar on the top, is you have some knowledge in wide-ranging areas across all of software development or AI, and this makes you a better collaborator, and that's where the certifications are really valuable. So yeah, I won't say more than that. I have a whole presentation I could give on this topic, but I won't. Tonight, we're talking about the Generative AI Leader certification. It is Google's newest certification, and it's called a foundational level cert, and it's relatively easy to get. And I want to explain to you why that's so powerful and so valuable. And so the whole theme of this evening is become a GAIL, or become a Generative AI Leader, as it's called. And let me dive into that. So the question is, who should get this certification? And if you're a Google Cloud newbie, should I become a GAIL? Well, yes, of course you should, because GenAI is everywhere. AI is everywhere. Generative AI is everywhere. So you should definitely be learning about this, even if you're new to the cloud. I'm already a pro cloud architect. Should I become a GAIL? Well, yes, because the material covered in the GAIL certification is not covered in any other certification learning path. So you'll be learning a lot of new things, even if you are PCA. I'm already a pro data engineer. Should I become a GAIL? Well, yes, for the same reasons that I just stated for PCA. I'm already a pro MLE. Should I become a GAIL? Pro MLE is machine learning engineer. This one's a little tricky because you would think that machine learning engineer certification would actually cover generative AI. In the exam version that I took about a little over a year ago, there was no GenAI content whatsoever on the exam. I heard recently, last week actually, from a Googler that this new version of the MLE exam does include some GenAI material, but it is still largely distinct. And you'll be learning in the GAIL certification, you'll be learning something that is not covered very extensively in the MLE material. So yes, the answer is, again, yes, you should. And finally, I'm already a GDE. Should I become a GAIL? Well, yes. And for a similar reasoning process goes along with this one. I'm a human being. Should I become a GAIL? By this point, you know the answer. Yes, of course, everybody should become a GAIL. And let me tell you why. Well, let me give you a comment from Eric Schmidt, actually. He said this statement at Google Next 2017, which is the Google Next, by the way, is the large annual conference that's held either in California or Las Vegas, and it has about 25 to 35,000 people. I don't know what it's up to right now, but it's the large annual gathering of all Google people that are interested in Google Cloud. And so I hope that the audio comes through on this. I know my experiment with having music at the top of the hour didn't work, but maybe let me know if you hear the audio on this. Here's what he said about Google Cloud in 2017.
The audio isn't coming through, but you might be able to turn on the captions on the video.
Oh, okay. So sorry about that. Let me just, well, let me try that actually. No, sorry, it's not letting me do that either. Anyway, this is a famous line that he said, and he says, just get to the cloud now. Just go there. There's no time to waste anymore. Just get on with it. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of what he said there. I've clearly got to work out this audio issue because I have I thought I had cracked it, but I guess not. Now, if I invited Eric to attend this meeting, but he was busy today. So if he were here this evening, what he would say would be, just learn AI now. Just go there now. There's no time to waste anymore to learn AI. So let's get on with it. And so the main point of the talk this evening, which I've already kind of alluded to, is that the Generative AI Leader certification and the learning path that leads to that gives you the greatest understanding of generative AI for the least effort. And secondarily, the learning path covers material that's not found elsewhere in Google certification training. Now, you could assemble all this knowledge on your own by reading documentation or using code labs or just diving in and working through blog posts and Medium articles, things like that. But this certification path will give you the most straightforward way to get there. I want to explain to you a little bit about generative AI and what that means. And we're not going to go deep. This is not a technical presentation. I'm not trying to teach you in 1 hour what you'll need to learn in 8 to 10 hours on your own through your own work. And then if you choose, you can take the exam after that. We're not going to go deep enough to get to cover a lot of technical things. But I do want to give you the big picture here. What I mean by generative AI, there are essentially 3 ways that it's being used today. The first thing is, which is what most people know about and what most people experience, are things like chatbots and co-pilots and text summarization and image generation. So these are things like ChatGPT, of course, and Gemini and Bard and Claude and all of the other chatbot related tools that are using some kind of a foundation model beneath them. So it's either a large language model, or these days it's typically a multimodal foundation model, but we still call them kind of generically LLMs because we're normally submitting text to them or speech, and that's usually the language interface. Now, it's getting a little more complicated because the multimodal is becoming more important, but I call these consumer-facing applications. These are consumer-facing because they don't really have much integration with your corporate data store or your internal database inside your company or anything like that. The co-pilots may have access to your, to your code base, but it's really still essentially something that can be used by an individual person by using a web browser. It's not really an application beyond that code that runs in your web browser, and one can get training and learn how to do prompt engineering and things like that, but it's really not the same as the next 2, which are what I call the enterprise use cases. So there's a big dividing line actually between consumer-facing and enterprise Gen AI, and it also impacts us as IT workers or developers. There's not much for us to do on the consumer-facing side. So number 1 is I'm just going to move on from it. I'm not going to say more about it because 2 and 3 are where the interesting work is for us as developers. Now, in the number 2 case is what I call enterprise Gen AI, but not agentic. Okay, not using agents. I'll say what agents are in a moment, but just think of it now as 2 and 3. The dividing line is non-agentic in 2, and then number 3 is agentic applications or agents. And so what are some examples of non-agentic? So retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, involves connecting a large language model or foundation model to an internal corporate data store to provide grounding of the responses to queries that we get from the LLMs. Okay, so that we know that, or we should know at least, even if we're only using the consumer-facing type of chatbots in number 1, we should certainly be aware that LLMs hallucinate, so-called, or confidently project knowledge that that don't always have. So that's sometimes called bluffing, or sometimes called hallucination. RAG is one way of grounding the responses to make them more connected to internal data stores and also more recent data source. It brings the recency and the accuracy better. Also, things like internal communications, like generating emails or synthesizing documents, storyboarding, code generation, synthetic data generation, which is becoming more prevalent. Code generation involves some connection to a code base, or maybe a Git repository or something like that, but it's still not an agent. Okay, so in the number 2 case, we are connecting the LLMs to internal corporate data stores or databases, but they're not considered agents yet, and I'll tell you why in a moment. That brings us to number 3, which is enterprise generative AI using agents. And agents are autonomous goal-directed software applications that use a foundation model. Okay, and I'll say more about this in the next slide here. So again, I'm going to ignore the 1 case, the consumer facing. I'm not going to talk about that anymore, but I want to just distinguish now between that 2 and 3, and what's the difference between generative AI without agents on the left here in this image, and then the agentic AI on the right. What's the difference? So on the left side, we're interacting directly with a foundation model to perform a single task. Remember, so that's like, it could be a chatbot, but grounded with corporate data store with internal information. So that would be a chatbot, but still a single task. It's a question and answering. Same thing is document summarization, or generating an email, or synthetic data generation. All these things are single tasks, more or less directly under direct control of the human being that's asking for the work to be done. Okay, contrast that to the case on the right, the agentic AI. In that case, we're building an application that operates autonomously to perform complex operations to satisfy a goal. Okay, so the application has some idea of goal-directed behavior, and it performs a series of steps and synthesizes data from different points of view to accomplish that goal. So let me, we're about almost 20 minutes in. Let me pause here for a minute to go. I wanted to bring back the Slack channel in case people were not, are we displaying the Slack sign up anywhere, or should I?
I shared it in the Q&A. It's the first question. If anybody hasn't joined, you can join Slack there. Okay,
so if you're looking for the URL to join the Slack channel, it's in the Q&A. Thank you. I wasn't sure. So we disabled the chat in Bevy in the platform here, but I wasn't sure that left us an option to present any information back to the audience. So thank you for figuring that out. And then the other question was related to that, but it slipped my mind. I'll come back to that later. Okay, I'm gonna keep going on then. Thank you. So in the world of Google Cloud, we have ways to deploy. We have ways of developing agents or working with agents that are called low-code solutions, and then we have, which I'll get to in a moment, we have the so-called code-first solutions. And I want to show you a little bit about how this works. So The low-code solutions are things like search agents, customer engagement suite, Vertex AI RAG engine, or retrieval augmented generation engine, and then agent space. And I'll tell you, the last two I'll talk about just for a moment. Agent space is really a way of creating an application in an environment where you're pulling in pre-built applications, either from Google, from third parties, or ones that you build yourself. But the emphasis there is on almost like it's the emphasis on composability. It's like putting an application together by pulling in different agents to do different business processes. And it is not on the focus is not on the development of those agents per se, right? The agents are assumed to be already built, already pre-existing, and agent space just is a way of pulling them together and presenting them to the employees in an organization, typically inside a company. That's what agent space does. So that's a low-code solution. And then similarly, Vertex AI RAG engine, instead of building a retrieval augmented generation solution by hand, which you can do, but to build a RAG, I can't go too deep technically here, but to build a RAG solution, it requires converting data, let's say from a document store. The data has to be converted somehow into vectors through an embedding process, and that vector store then enables semantic search, and that's what makes the whole RAG thing work, right? Okay, that's what at the heart of it. And so just in that one sentence, though, there's a lot of pieces to it. There's like, well, I have to take those documents, I have to break them into pieces. That's called chunking. And then the embedding model itself, there's a lot of options there. And then finally, we have to build a vector store. There could be performance considerations and which database should I use, all kinds of things. Now, if you just take the pre-built solution from Google, you could use the RAG engine. It'll do a lot of this for you in kind of an opinionated default manner. You won't have full control over everything the way you would if you did it yourself. But that's the point of low-code solutions, is that they make it easy to get started and you get the kind of default options, but you can't have full control. If you need full control, you have to write code and learn how to do that, writing code yourself. So let's take a look at the code-first solutions. And here, I just call this deploying agents with code-first approach. This is where you're actually building, maybe from building blocks, but you're still having to write some code. And the most powerful way to do this is with the Agent Development Kit, or ADK. And that was released in the spring this year at the Google Next conference of 25. The ADK was released, and it's become very popular. It is somewhat equivalent to other agent development frameworks, such as LangChain and LangGraph, or maybe Crew AI is a low-code alternative to ADK. But ADK is one of the most powerful frameworks in the marketplace today. It has become very popular. It has, I think, last time I checked, it has about 14,000 stars on the GitHub repo. So it's become very popular in a very short time. And ADK itself is open source and open model, and is also interoperable with models that have been made with other frameworks or other tools. So it has a lot of great features. It's follows Google's commitment to open source tools, such as you would see with TensorFlow is open source, developed by Google, and actually Kubernetes is a great example of open source project that developed at Google and actually ultimately donated to an external organization, so that it's really no longer owned by or part of Google. It's owned by Compute Foundation, CNCF, has taken over the Kubernetes, and that just made sure that Google could never like retract it and pull it back and make it their own product. It's now just been contributed to the CNCF, and that's been a great accelerator in the adoption of Kubernetes across all cloud providers, such as AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Oracle OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And so that's been a really great success story, and it demonstrates how openness can sometimes be great benefit to the industry. Now, another tool, another important tool that integrates with ADK is the so-called MCP. This is where the tools live inside MCP, and those provide connections to databases often and other things like that. There's also A2A protocol, which is agent to agent. I believe that's a Google. That's another Google product that is open source as well. And then I just literally today, Google released something called AP2, which is agent payment system that is paving the way for using agents to power e-commerce. That's just at the beginning of getting started, so I can't say much about AP2. It just came out today, literally, and I updated my slide this afternoon. Now, one of the things we do as developers when we're building these agents or multi-agent systems using ADK is we have to develop the reasoning loop logic. Okay, so I'll tell you in a moment that the pieces of what make up an agent, but the business logic that goes into a reasoning loop is part of what we have to work on. Now, these applications, that once we build them, usually the powerful ones are called multi-agent applications. They can autonomously perform tasks and make decisions and follow workflows without us manually coding all those business rules the way we used to do with a workflow engine or a business process, like an RPA, robot process automation type of system. Those are kind of like very brittle systems because the main happy path would get coded correctly, but then if there are exceptions that could fall outside of the pre-established rules, then those would have to be kicked out and handled manually, or break the system, or slow down, or possibly even get processed incorrectly by this sort of manual coding of business rules. Now, the idea of the agents here is that the LLM can be not just can actually guide that process and make decisions on its own. And I use the word a little bit loosely, but the LLM is said to have reasoning capability. And I'm not asserting that reasoning is the same thing that humans do when they're reasoning, but this is the term that's used. I don't know of a better term for it, but it's called LLM reasoning, and this is what allows the LLM to change its role. So we're no longer expecting our LLM to be behind a chatbot and be this sort of omniscient provider of all information, right? The knower of all things that we naively think the chatbots would be. That's not what. So in the agent, the LLM becomes the thinking brain and the decision-making orchestrator that pulls different tools in to do different tasks. So the role of the LLM has changed dramatically when we move to the ADK environment. So let's pivot now. That's enough of a technical introduction about generative AI. Let's pivot now to the certifications that are available within Google Cloud. I'm only going to talk today about the so-called foundational level certifications, of which there are two, and I will avoid discussing the higher level certifications. There's an associate level, there are several associate level certifications, and then there are a multitude of pro level certifications. I've already mentioned a few that I think are the most important pro level ones, which are we call them, by their abbreviations, but they're called Pro Cloud Architect, Pro Data Engineer, and Pro Machine Learning Engineer. Those are probably the three most important ones. There are more specialized ones like networking and security, but they tend to be, in my mind, they're built on top of Cloud Architect and Data Engineer. So if you want to go pursue the pro level, we could have a later discussion about that, but that's beyond what we're doing today. the point I'm making today is that the foundational level certifications give you a lot of understanding for a really small effort. That's the thesis of this talk today. Okay, and I want you to come away thinking very positively about this certification process, and I don't want you to be daunted by that thing that it's too much work. Okay, it's not too much work. It is a very modest effort and a very great return for that effort. Whereas pro level, I would tell you, and some audiences that I tell this to are unhappy to hear this, a pro level certification requires about 100 hours of effort, 100 hours of watching videos and running labs. And that's a minimum. I would say like 150 hours. And if you're new to the game, if you're new to cloud, maybe 200 hours. And that some people just don't want to hear that. They think, well, I should be able to get it in 2 days or something. That's not how it works. If it were that easy, then it wouldn't have any value. Okay, let's go back to foundational certification, though. There are two foundational ones. Cloud Digital Leader. This is a great way to I also recommend the Digital Leader very highly for people who, even if you're a developer or anyone, really a cloud expert or not expert, or either technical or not technical, Cloud Digital Leader gives you the capacity to talk with business leaders about the importance of cloud. And I took this Digital Leader thing and I thought, well, it's a throwaway. It's going to be so easy for me. But what I found was that it helped me talk with executives and business leaders on their level and in their language. Now, getting back to GenAI Leader, this is the one that we're focused on today, the one in the red here, in case you haven't worked that out. And what I call out for you is that this foundational certifications are really ideal for people that have collaborative roles with technical professionals. Okay, so you may or may not be you may be a project manager or a product owner. You may be some kind of an executive somewhere. You might be a developer like I am. But here's the thing: remember I said earlier at the top, the reason I showed off my certifications, well, not just for bragging, but I wanted to make that point about T-shaped skill sets. Right? You have really strong expertise. That's your vertical downstroke of the T. You go really deep on. For me, that's database and data engineering and BigQuery and Dataproc and Dataflow and all those great data engineering tools that I work with all the time. That's my downstroke of that T. But across the top, I have multiple certifications in different areas that are pretty far away from what I do in my day-to-day job, right? And so that's that collaborative role that I want to emphasize. That's what these foundational certifications are really good for. And in the case of the GenAI Leader, let's focus in on that now. I won't read this text. This is just verbatim from the certification page. By the way, I'm going to publish these slides, and the links for these slides are in the notes of the slides, which you cannot see, but you will be able to see them when I publish the PDF version of these slides. So worry not, you'll be able to get all the references here and backtrack your way through this if you want to. But what I want to call out here is what's technically covered in GenAI Leader is foundations of GenAI, techniques to improve the model output, what are Google's GenAI offerings, and then the business strategies for successful implementation of those GenAI solutions. Okay, so that makes sense, right? That's not super technical. It's not real deep, but it gives everybody a common understanding of what GenAI is, and it gives us a common language so that we can talk to each other and collaborate. That's the value of this whole certification. Now, I want to call out to you, the next thing I'm going to lead you to is called Google Skills Boost, or Google Cloud Skills Boost, or I just call it Skills Boost, right? It's formerly called Quick Labs, but today it's called Skills Boost, and there are over 1,000 activities within Skills Boost. So there are standalone labs, individual trainings, and then there are also a lot of learning paths or pre-paved pathways for you to learn with a goal at the end. Often it's a certification. Now, if you just jumped into Skills Boost and started going, there's an Explore button, and you could say Explore. I recommend you do this if you have a particular question that you want to learn something about. I want to learn about ADK or MCP. You could go into Skills Boost and just look in the search bar in the Explore panel and say, okay, plug in MCP and tell me what training you have on MCP. I would caution you not to do that right now. Don't do that yet until you get more familiar with Skills Boost, because there's so much there that you're going to get lost. You're just going to get lost. It's like going into the backwoods in Maine without a guide. You have a very high chance of getting lost, and this isn't a great experience, right? So what I strongly recommend for any of the certifications that you might want to pursue, go to that certification page and look for this button over here, train for the exam. Train for the exam. So we're on the we're on the page, GenAI Leader page, which I'll just call GAIL from now on. Okay, we're on the GAIL page. Over here, we have train for the exam. If you click on that, it brings you into Skills Boost, into exactly the right area where you want to be. And you go directly to this part, and it brings you to the GenAI Leader learning path. Okay, learning path is a set of, as it's called here, 5 activities. 5 activities really means 5 separate courses. An activity could be a course, or it could be an individual lab, or it could be an individual video. Oh, in this case, it's 5 courses. And these courses look like, I know this is a little hard to read, but these are just a screenshot of what you'll see in Skills Boost. And these are some of the presenters here. They're very fun and excellent presenters, so I recommend this. The 5 courses here cover like what you would think they would do. I won't read these off because I have broken these titles out on the next slide, and I'll talk there. What I want to say at this level is all of the courses in this learning path consist of video lessons, document links, quizzes, and similar materials for reading and viewing, but no labs. There are no labs here at all. Okay, so it's not meant to be deeply technical. You're not going to be learning how to build agents here, but you'll be learning the theory and the common language that we all want to use when we're talking about agents and talking about LLMs and foundation models and what's a frontier model, what's a foundation model, what's the difference, things like that. This will give you the common language so that you can talk with colleagues who are both experts and maybe not experts. So this is why I recommend this so highly. Now, the point of the 5 courses here is to give you a ladder, give you a gentle approach, call it a ladder or stepping stones, whatever analogy you like to use, but it gives you a ladder to go up to the top instead of just climbing up, jumping up 10 feet from floor to ceiling, which most of us can't do, right? It gives you that ladder that you can go up step by step, and it brings you up to where it leads you to is to agents. What are agents? And I said earlier, I promise I would give you this, like the components of an agent are obviously an LLM, or what we call foundational model, really is more accurate than LLM because the model driving an agent is typically a multimodal model. And so we call it FM, foundational model, is more accurate than LLM, which is a language only model. Okay, so anyway, foundation model, that's kind of the thinking brain, the decision making processor inside the agent. Again, it's not the omniscient, all-knowing oracle that has the answer to everything. It's more of a decision-making engine that orchestrates the choice of tools here to do certain things. So tools are what connect to a database or connect to a document store or do a specific task. And then the reasoning loop is the software code that we write that makes all this work together. And so how do we get to this top part here where we actually are talking about agents and building agents? Well, we can't go there directly, so we have to learn first, course by course, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the courses. Beyond the chatbot, unlock the foundational concepts, navigate the landscape. Then we start in course number 4, we start talking about how apps, GenAI apps, can plug into your workflow at work and adapt into your business process and so forth. And then finally, at number 5, we get to talk about agents, generative AI agents, and how that can really truly transform your organization. Now, in this learning path for GAIL, it does not go that deep. In my opinion, it actually, course number 5 just touches the tip of the iceberg of agentic GenAI, right? Now we're in that number 3 category where it's all agents. I'm talking only about agents here, but course number 5 will only bring you so far. It will talk about mainly those what I call low code options within Google Cloud, such as search agents, customer engagement suite, and agent space, right? Those are discussed in course number 5. However, that leaves a big gap still where the learning path here in course number 5 in particular do not talk about ADK, Agent Development Kit. They do not talk about MCP tools, Gemini CLI, and vibe coding. That's all not present in the GAIL certification, and you don't need it to pass the exam. You can totally just take this learning path and probably very confidently go into the exam and pass it. That's at least that was my experience. Okay, so where would you, if you're interested in learning about all this stuff, ADK and MCP and tools and how to do vibe coding, well, you would come to one of the Google Roadshow events, like the one we had on September 8th, about a week ago, or you come to our DevFest on October 4th at GDG Cloud Boston, or one of our co-hosting chapters. We're going to have a DevFest. We are going to have additional hands-on sessions for the so-called InstaVibe and Agent First Code Labs. These have been developed by Google's developer relation. Did I say that right? Developer relations team. Yes, the DevRel team. The Google DevRel team is just on fire. They are just fantastically good, and the materials here are superbly good. The Agentverse Google Roadshow event that we did last week was pretty typical of those events. They go very fast and very deep, and to get the most out of those, you should be a developer coming into the session. Now at DevFest, we've recognized that there are also people who are just getting started. So we're actually going to have 2 parallel tracks at DevFest where we do the fast and deep with Agentverse, like the Google Roadshow events. And we're also going to have a more introductory track, which will be very similar content, but at a pace that's more reasonable and with more help and more assistance to get you started if you're just beginning on this pathway. But all of this, what I've said in the last 2 minutes about DevFest and Google Roadshow, that's all beyond what you are going to learn from Skills Boost in the GenAI Leader course number 5. And it's also beyond what you need to get the GAIL certification to pass the exam, but it is what you probably might want to be building within your company. Okay, so this lower part here is extremely relevant to developers who are trying to build enterprise applications within a company. Okay, so I think that's clear. Here's the story with Skills Boost Access. We're running this program under this is a little tricky, I have to explain this. There is a program now called Get Certified, Community Edition. And last year, this program was called Road to Google Developer Certification. Some of you may have heard my workshops under the RGDC program. And my colleagues at GDG Cloud Boston have run several other workshops under RGDC. And GDG Lawrence is presently running a set of workshops under that. Well, now it's named Get Certified Program Community Edition. Okay, so we have run a lot of these in the Boston area and in the Northeast. So we're very familiar with this. I put the tag Get Certified onto this event accidentally because I didn't realize the name had been changed. I confess I didn't realize that RGDC is now called Get Certified. I didn't get that memo. And so I put this Get Certified tag onto this event. What's the upshot of that? Well, this is what enables everybody that's listening to this call will be able to get Skills Boost access through the Get Certified program. Now, I'm not sure if that doesn't work, then there's an alternate way that you will get skills boost access that may be a little different. And so there are variations here, but the main idea is that you're going to get skills boost access, meaning you'll have the ability to run labs for free just by signing up with your Gmail account. Okay. However, this doesn't really matter for today, and I have a couple of days to sort through this, and by next week we'll have all the specifics worked out. So for example, I don't know if you're going to have skills boost access that's limited to certain learning paths, which is quite a few actually. It's like 8 to 10 learning paths. It may be that you're restricted to those 10 learning paths and that it's for 6 months, or it might be that you have everything in skills boost but only for 2 months. I don't know those details yet, but the point is for your homework assignment for next week is to study the GenAI Leader materials, and for that there are no labs. So this whole idea of whether you need credits is moot. You don't need. I can tell you, you don't need credits because the only thing that costs credits in Skills Boost are the labs. So all the content, the video lessons, the documents that are linked, the quizzes, that can all be done without using any credits. So, however, just by joining the event today, you will get some level of access. I just don't know exactly what that is yet, and I kind of needed to wait until we actually have the event today to figure that out, and I will figure it out before next week. So I will have a definitive answer, but the point is for today and coming few days, 1 week, it just doesn't matter because you can do everything you need without these credits. Now, I'm sorry about that confusion, but there's been the programs have changed recently, and it's been a little challenging for me to get the answers to the exact answers. Okay, now your homework for the week. I hope everyone is able to come back next week because it'll be kind of a similar thing where we go quickly. But next week we'll have actually less material to cover and a little more. We'll have more time for questions. Might open the chat up next week and we'll have a Q&A. So next week will be a little different from today. But for the homework for next week is create a Skills Boost account using a personal Gmail ID. As I sent you out on the email today, if you have a corporate ID that is a Google Workspace ID, that would also work, but it may not work as well as a personal Gmail ID. So even if you have a company where you're using Google Workspace or a school, you may want to just get a personal Gmail ID anyway, because as I put on today's email, there are a whole series of things that will tie into that ID. And for example, let's say you should leave your company in a couple of years and everything about your Google certification is tied to your company email ID, which then you won't have control over anymore. That might be of concern for you. So I recommend a personal Gmail ID. If it's a school, usually often alumni will get some Gmail access and be able to retain that ID even long term after they graduate. So maybe the school is less of an issue, but for companies, I definitely would recommend that you get a separate Gmail ID because you're going to end up having Skills Boost. You're going to log into the Google Cloud Console. You're going to have certification websites such as, let's see if I can remember them all. They're called Credly is the one that manages the transcript. There's Accredible, I think, is the one where you actually sign in to register for the exam, and then there's the Criterion, which is the company that actually delivers the exam. So there's all these 4 or 5 different websites that you need to sign into, and it's really best if you use the same ID across the board. So I recommend a personal Gmail ID. If you've signed in today with other than a personal Gmail ID, you could sign in next week with a different ID. That would be okay as far as these meetings are concerned. If you do that, I would ask you just to unregister with the old ID and then re-register with the new ID. That's definitely an option for you. And you'll get the Skills Boost access that way as well. So don't worry about that. Now, the other thing that we will not be able to help you with is if you're using a corporate laptop or PC or Mac and it's completely locked down and you're not able to access a personal Gmail ID from the corporate laptop, that is something we just cannot help you with at all, because that's the security by design of your company, and we're not able to subvert that or work around that in any way. So we're not even going to try to help you with that. If you do have a problem connecting with, and you have a Google Workspace account, I ask you to post a message in the Slack channel during the week. We'll try to monitor that. We can only give a limited amount of help, though, because basically our advice is to use a personal Gmail account. And the same thing apply if you come to our DevFest meeting in person. We're going to have these are the same rules that we ask people to do at DevFest. So if you do this now and you do come to DevFest, you'll be that much further ahead. And we're expecting about 200 people at DevFest. So if you want to join our workshops and you already come in and you already know your ID, it'll just make things much easier for everybody. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm hosting these events this week and next week, is to kind of prepare people who are local to the Boston area and planning to come in person to DevFest. You'll be that much more prepared for entering. Now, you'll also have the knowledge of knowing more about Generative AI Leader. You'll have the knowledge that comes from these studying this learning path, which will also be a great benefit for you when you want to participate in the DevFest workshops. It's pretty hard to just jump in cold into the workshops if you don't have some kind of preparation in what machine learning and AI is, or GenAI in particular. And so this is really the reason why I decided to schedule these sessions right in front of our So we're really part of DevFest season here. We're all part of the same big DevFest. I know I'm speaking to a lot of people across the country and globally, in fact. But the DevFest, just to reiterate, it is an in-person event only in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So if you're planning to come in person, then that advice applies to you. If not, we will see you at some other events. Okay. So your number 2 part of your homework is to complete all 5 courses in the GenAI learning, the GenAI Leader learning path, the GAIL learning path, which is about, I think, nominally 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours of work, maybe at the outside 10 hours. I tend not to, I consider this training as a kind of investment, and I pause the videos to, if it's something I don't understand, I pause the video and jump out to Wikipedia or Google documentation to check things and fill in my knowledge gaps. Okay, so I tend to not blow through as fast as possible. That's not the point for me. I'm trying to actually learn the stuff so that I can be well trained, and I can also teach about it, right? So that's my goal. If your goal is just simply, oh, I want to pass the exam, then you could probably just go straight through without doing all the little side detours that I tend to do. Okay, the third part is an optional part of your homework. Share your experiences, help others on Slack. I think everyone is able to get on Slack. I was told that there was a little confusion about this link that's provided, that it should maybe have been in one long URL. I think when I turned it to a tiny URL, it got a little bit mangled, and so obviously a lot of people are joining the Slack. So I think it has it's not entirely straightforward, but obviously the people who are on are figuring it out. So that's the homework. I think that is the last word goes to Odd Squad's Miss O, and I'm sorry that you won't be able to hear the audio on this, but I'm going to play the video anyway. And
Norbert, maybe we can share the link to this video and to the video Eric Schmidt spoke in the Slack channel after the talk.
We'll share the links to the videos, exactly. But anyway, Miss O, if you're a fan, you have to be kind of a fan of the Odd Squad show, which I am, even though it's a kids show. It's actually hilarious for adults also. And so anyway, at the very end of most of the shows, Miss O says, "What are you waiting for? Go!" And so that's my admonition to you. That's it. Here's my contact info. There's the Slack channel again. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, Marianne, for your help today.